There, it's working. Great. I wanted to just wrap up Pissarro because we left him behind, and there were no readings for today. We have a reading for Friday on Degas' ballerina pictures. So I'm going to look at a little bit of Pissarro, sort of wrap those up, because we didn't finish it up on Friday, and look at a little bit of Sicily's pictures, because they really hit on many of the things we've been talking about, and then sort of set up some Degas, if I can get through all that material in an hour. So we were looking at these late works by Pissarro. Remember that he had moved, that's misspelled, it's Eragny, E-R-A-G-N-Y, my stupid assistant, who's me. But he moved to Eragny, which is sort of near Pontoise. It's one of these small suburban towns, right, self-sufficient towns on the waterways around Paris. And you can see that here in his garden he has the same sort of idealized view of labor in the land, even though it's a cultivated garden, right? The same idealized view of what it means to work the land here late in his life. And he moved there in 1883 and lived there for the rest of his life, but kept going back into Paris from there to paint these urban pictures, for which he's quite well known. And I think this makes a really wonderful pair side by side, because it's like, why does he live in Eragny? Because he gets that life on the left, right? And he doesn't want to live in Paris because Paris offers you that life on the right. A life of bustle and pushing and shoving and noise, you know, and I guess they both have the smell of horse manure, but in a different way, you know. Somehow horse manure smells worse when it's on the streets of Paris than when it's plowed into your garden, right? In any event, he's living out there because he's got this political philosophy that says that this is the ideal way of life, to emulate and to be like the rural working class, what is often called the peasant class. I don't like this term. But the city still fascinates him, fascinates many people because it's so new and so vibrant, you know. At the same time, we talked about the fact that the point of view, looking down on it, from the fourth story view, almost all of these things are looking down on Paris that he does in this period of his life. On one part, it's necessitated by his failing eyesight. He's become increasingly sensitive to bright light. So it comes from inside a room that he's rented, rather than on the streets. At the same time, it gives a very different psychological view of the city. Rather than being down in the crowd, being part of the crowd, he's looking at it from a God's eye view. Right? They're beneath him in a way. On the one on the right, exactly, in the Parisian. And he does quite a few of these in and around Paris. I'm going to show you three other ones more quickly than this. This is the one that's really most fruitful for our discussions because we've read about that particular boulevard in other readings, right? The Clark reading tells us all about Boulevard d'Italie, right? So there's the Herbert reading. So we certainly have other things we can bring into this than that one reading we've had so far. But here's a pair of views that he did, again, from this elevated point of view, of the gardens that are inside the Louvre. The Louvre Palace, right, the old Louvre Palace, which is the French royal palace now, the famous art gallery, right, is basically laid out like this. It's a big, sort of see, and this one goes a bit further like that, and then it's an archway here that traffic can go through. Right? And so we're standing sort of here and looking that direction into the open courtyard of the Louvre. So you can imagine one on the left, right? The big pyramid, the big glass pyramid is roughly there. Okay, so we're looking into the courtyard of the Louvre Palace, right? Past this wing, which is not open to the public yet, which is now the Richelieu wing of the Louvre was not yet open to the public. And here, we're pulled back a bit. So this garden that starts the Louvre, right, ends up becoming the Jardin des Tuileries, which runs all the way to where the Place de la Concorde, and it becomes the Champs-Élysées, right? Goes all the way to the Arc de Triomphe. So there's a massive garden that begins here and shoots further out. So you can imagine that in this picture here, itself at the time. And we're lucky to have two different ones here in the DC area. The one right in the Krieger Museum, which I wanted to take you guys to because it's something good stuff, but it closes at like 4. So it's not really possible with this class to go up there. But they got a nice little modern collection. It's on Foxhall Road in Northwest, right? Up by AU. And really worth the trip. It's a terrific building and a really great little collection, including a room au Monets, right? Those scenes of the Brittany sequence that were talked about in the Herbert article are all, there's 3 or 4 of them there. Quite nice. I think on a certain level, if we take into mind, keep in mind Pissarro's political beliefs, the sort of radical socialist beliefs, the idea that we're actually kind of looking through part of the Richelieu wing, this unopened, this closed wing of the Louvre, which had been opened. So the Louvre was the royal palace, and after the Revolution, right, it was open to the public, and the seed of the Louvre collection was the French Royal Collection that was then added to by the various salons and whatnot through the years. Okay, that's sort of how the Louvre as a public collection came to be. And so here at Pissarro, looking at the building that houses the greatest public collection of art in France. But he's looking at it through part of the old royal building that's still closed to the public. And if you think about it on those terms, even though we can see through the window, right, you get the refraction through that window there, there's something that's blocking our view of much of the Louvre, much of the public collection. It's still blocked by this vestige of the old empire, right? The vestige of the old monarchy in Paris, in France in general. And I think there might be something to that, right? There might be something into how he's reading that. At the same time, like other works that we saw, like the Boulevard des Italiens, we still have the hustle and bustle of Parisian life. And again, in Pissarro's hands, in order to capture that sense of ongoing movement, he tends to make things sort of ghostly and diaphanous. They almost disappear as if like, and this is a bad analogy because cameras can do this, but that's not the point it's making, right? You know how when a camera, when the shutter stays open and things move and they just turn ghosty? Right? It has that effect, doesn't it? It's almost like they're whizzing by so fast that they don't firmly freeze onto his canvas, those carriages that shoot by the base of the wing of the Louvre that we see here. And that's true for the people as well. They become these just sort of darting, fleeting moments. And again, from the Herbert article, we realize that a lot of this idea of the quickness of Impressionism is maybe something that we should reconsider. But Pissarro is using it very particularly to get across a particular idea, which is that modern life is busy, modern life is fast, modern life happens so fast that you better look quick, you better capture quick, or you're going to miss it. So whether he's painting quickly or not, he's keeping it looking quick. You know what I'm saying? I can't tell you, because I don't have the technical means to dive into it to say, was it painted quickly or not? I would take some serious pondering to think that's true. But the point is he wanted to make it look that way. And that adds to the meaning, doesn't it? Right? Modern life doesn't stand still, especially within the city. As opposed, of course, to his country pictures. Remember, they just always sound, you know? And the figures are more solid, and they're resting on a fence, or they're walking slowly on a path through town, right? The city, everything's moving so fast that you see right through them, right? These are nice details, though, huh? Isn't that beautiful? When I saw that, it's done by his signature, right? There's a green and blue and red. And again, he's got these, we've seen in other pictures by him, his ability to load his brush at seams with multiple colors and use those to get an idea of a hat with a feather or something like that, or some robe. And I see Sarah looking like, I hate this guy too. It's just out of petty jealousy, right? Yeah, me too. Because they make it look so darn easy. I think if I did that to a canvas, it would look like I was trying to write in a pen that I just, so then you back away and you look at it down here and you see where it is in the corner, if you look at the parts where it is, right? And it looks perfectly fine. So from a distance, that looks exactly like people. And you get a close, you're like, well, it isn't, And then I would love to sit down with Bob Herbert and say, hey, what do you think's going on with this brush? Do you think he's come back into the brush and worked a wet stroke with some secondary color to make it look as if it's a single stroke, or do you think it's a single stroke? Those peppermint striped hats that we saw in the omnibus on Friday, right? That looked like a destiny piece where you're going to work it up on your palette and then drag your brush in to get some red and some white, which I think is fantastic. Or did you come back into the white and just hit it with a little bit of red and made it look like it's as easy as can be? That's what I think infuriates Sarah and myself. If I put words in your mouth, is what infuriates me. Is the fact that it looks so darn easy, and it just ain't. Right. Our third sort of really great picture. This one just came to the National Gallery from the Corcoran collection. Another view of the Louvre. So you see the landmarks that are the same. Look at these two bits here, right? That's there. Okay. So we're looking at the exact same building, but what we've done is we've moved out here to our left. You mentioned with the left-hand picture, right? We go to our left. This is the end of that ring. Okay? Does that make sense? So when you see the end of this, which you can't see with the top camera out of this picture frame, you would look at the end of this. So you go on this street, all these carriages across the bridge, hangs on the opposite side of the set. Okay? So we're looking over basically the same direction at the same parts of the building here and through the Louvre itself. Right? As we went back to that other picture we had with Chardin, you would see some of the further out, right? So again, another view of the exact same building. So the ideas that he has about the Louvre and what it means to him, repository for art, right? Remnants of the Royal Collection now made public is here as well. As is his general attitude toward, again, the city and its busyness, right? The fact that there's always something going on. So we've got how many different kinds of water transport here? Some of them taking people, right? The one dead center in the picture on your right. This one here is that's a water taxi. Right, a water bus. But some of the other ones may well be hauling cargo, right? That's what I think sort of that is our cargo haulers. But the bottom line is that even the river itself, which in so many of our impressionist pictures are images of sort of peace and tranquility, right? Think Monet's pictures, when he puts boats in there, they're usually like pleasure boats, right? Sailboats. Along with the wind, no industry power and travel. And here, everything is motoring back and forth, up and down the Seine. And there's no great comment on pollution, I don't think. I don't think people understood pollution yet in the same way that we're so attuned to it. I think for them, the smoke and the steam are just symbols of progress of industry, of the bustling nature of the city. Some nice details again and again, just to keep the painters out there upset. All these little dabs of paint. Interestingly, I noticed this when I was down there, and I'd love to look into this further. Like I said, I don't research impressionist art. But you can see in the left-hand picture, there's that one little dab of blue right there. If you get close, it's the only place that blue is anywhere on the canvas. And this blue, it's sort of a more railroad light blue. You know what I'm talking about? Sort of a turquoisey color of a railroad light at night. And it appears right over the middle of that bridge, and it's the only place on the campus I could find it. In the same way that the Boulevard des Italiens has a little lick of green right in the middle of the trees that only seems to appear one place, which for me is also this thing like, what are you freaking thinking? You know? I'm going to pull out this and this, and now it's done. Right? And it wasn't finished done at that one point in there. But there are other artists in the 19th century. I don't think I have a close-up of it. There are other artists in the 19th century who would do things like that, but they're usually using red. the English landscape artist, who was quite well known in France, John Constable, notoriously put one touch of red in his pictures. And he wrote about it. He said it helps to focus attention subconsciously. Right? You may not notice it at first, but it helps you to sort of help him to guide you around. It'll almost always be just one. Right? So I wonder the degree to which Pissarro, and that's 1820, so it's a long time before this, 75 years earlier. I'm curious the degree to which Pissarro knows that, or if he's just intuiting it, or if maybe I'm reading something into it. It's just a total wonderful accident that he wasn't really thinking about it. But how do you get one touch of a single color in one place on a canvas and nowhere else? You know? And I think it's indicative of what Herbert said about the fact that the Impressionist artists often talked about as being this immediate reaction to nature, when in fact, that's not always the case. It may be trying to represent something that appears to be that, but the technique itself betrays a different approach. A nice detail of the figures on the Equinox. I was trying to figure out, as I was looking at this in my office, whether or not that entire platform was an afterthought. Because it seems like so much of the color of the water is picked up in the mud puddles, if you will, the rain slick on that plateau that the figures are standing on. And as you look at areas like this bit right in through here, it almost looks as if the water was fully painted. They came back in on top of it and put this stuff on there. But then I saw this bit here that really does look very deliberately painted, as if that was part of the composition from the get-go. Right? But it's important to remember one of the things that the Herbert article on Monet told us, and that is that artists are always making choices insofar as the general layout of the things they put in. So you shouldn't expect it to give you the exact same geometry as a photograph would from the same position. Right? He's going to make compositional choices that say, I'm sorry, but I have to decrease the size of that platform. I've got to cut it back a bit because the composition doesn't warrant it. Right? Because it's lining up goofy with something else. Right? Makes changes at the last minute. And again, that runs counter to the myth of the Impressionists. That yellow cloth of that second person by the railing. Right? There's woman in blue, woman in orange, there's a third man or third person there in yellow. I think, right? Sure does seem like a crowd. And what looks from a distance to be maybe a child at their feet is just these two amorphous orange lobos, right? Because this bit here, right, when you look at it from a distance, it's looking like they've got a little child by the hand almost. It's so assured, so fantastic, and then just because I can. Yeah. I tell people when they do slideshows, never put something up just because you can, but I couldn't resist putting this one up because that's that group that I was just talking about over there. And at a certain point, doesn't it look like something from Germany, 1945 or something like that, some sort of abstract expressions work, early Jackson Pollock or something, really fantastic and bold. I think you can see here with this particular detail some of the things that Herbert was talking about. You'll notice that peach ridge of paint that's sort of just off center, right? Seems to exist not for trying to paint anything, but to build up some texture. Gracie. The entire picture or this detail? The entire picture is about does anybody remember it? It's about like yay. I don't have it written down, but I would say it's about 24, no bigger than 24, 36. I would say closer to like probably 20 by 25 or something, right? You can always look it up on the National Gallery is very good about giving you that. So if you can email me and I'll go look it up too. So this detail here, right, it must be probably like this, I would imagine, right? You can see how that red orange splashed. See this right down here? how that wet orange paint splashed across the surface of the other paints that are there. It so stand out. Go down and get a little spyglass, get a magnifying glass and go down there. Yeah, I know, seriously, binoculars are great, but also you can buy for about $10.99. I bought one of these one year. I broke it because I was carrying the tag that I brought. But it's probably this big. Kiefer Sutherland used to use one on 24. A nice one, it's like $9.99, a little spyglass that will focus at about this distance, which is what you need, right? You need something with about a 1 to 2 foot focal distance, because you can't, you don't want to be all the way across the room. You want to get close, you don't want to get too close. And it's really terrific for exactly that, right? Just zeroing in. The problem is I wear glasses, and that makes it impossible, right? Okay. Sisley, Alfred Sisley, is born in Paris, but his parents were British, and that accounts for a name that doesn't sound particularly French, right? Alfred Sisley. But he was friends with Monet from a really early age on, and he tends not to get a lot of notice outside of classes that focus on Impressionism. And part of the reason for that is that, well, there's a lot of reasons. I like him a lot, but he's nowhere near as good as the other guys, I think. And I think we'll see in a few of these pictures that his sense of Pissarro, Monet can get human anatomy within the stroke, and there's no doubt that that they understand the body somehow. Sisley's are a little bit more awkward. They're just, even if you look at her, right? Just there's something about the way she's almost like a cutout just been stuck in there. And the sense of something that's really moving in the way that people really move doesn't quite come off as well in his work. The other thing about Sisley that I think gets him not as broadly recognized is the fact that his works what do you get from a Sisley that you don't get from a Monet? Does that make sense? So if you're going to look at impressions, some people, what is impressions all about? Here's Monet, and you get this, and this, and this, right? And you throw Sisley, you get, it's the same thing. Kind of, right? There's many of the same issues are right there. Or, in this case, what are you going to get from Sisley that you don't get from Pissarro? Right? A snow scene in Louveciennes, focusing on the quiet, unrushed life of people who live in these little towns. I mean, what do we get here that we don't get, and maybe even better, in a Pissarro? Right? So those are the reasons, I think, on a certain level, at least for me, why Sisley might get overlooked. I'm feeling like I'm not down on him. And Kate knows this because I'm not down on Renoir, right? But I'm not that down on him. I think he's actually pretty good. I just can't explain why he sometimes doesn't always appear in things. So here he's living in Louveciennes, or nearby Louveciennes. He had moved to Louveciennes in 1870 because he was fleeing Paris because of the war. We've talked about this before, right? The Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and the subsequent Paris Commune of 1871 forced many people who were living in Paris to leave because of the siege, right? The war is being fought in the streets of Paris. So Monet goes to London, then spends time in Holland. Right? Sisley goes out to those little rural towns along the Seine that we've seen other artists occupy, that we talked about and put on the map in our talk on Tuesday. And he's there at the exact same time that Pissarro is. And I'm listening, look, like I said, this is not my focal point of study, right? But I spent a lot of time yesterday looking for, I wanted to find out him and Pissarro hanging out together, right? Doesn't it make sense? They're both in the best at the same time. They ought to be in contact with one another. Even though Pissarro doesn't live there, he just painted a lot. So they certainly would have known each other, you would think. And since Pissarro has such a legacy of helping younger artists to figure it out, to find their way, right, to develop their skill, I was hoping that what we're seeing here is Pissarro pulling Sisley aside and telling him how to make it work. But I couldn't find anything on it. And I think that probably means that there wasn't that much of a direct connection, right? But certainly he is very much like Pissarro, picking up on this idea of rural life as an idealized alternative to the big city. And of course, he originally arrived there. Keep in mind first impressions, right? He originally arrived there when Paris was being attacked by the Germans. So of course it would have seemed even that much more like, this rural campsite, right? A beautiful place to go to get away from the bustle. And the mood of his works is very much like the mood of Pissarro's works around the same time. People meandering about, certainly probably working, but at the same time, not particularly hard at it. This woman appears to be dressed as a servant, as a domestic, with the apron on, a dirty gray apron on, as she struggles through the snow on her way to work. But again, there's no hurry, there's no rush to anything at all. I think when we look at the Pissarro on the right, you can see what I was saying before about Sicily's a little bit more stunted in anatomy. Right? It just seems like a little less. It's more something that I'd probably come up with if I were to start painting. We're talking about how much we hate the Impressionists for being able to make a figure out of just a sneeze of paint. But this seems a little bit closer to what I might pull off. Hoping I couldn't even get that far, but still, you get the idea, right? It's less superhuman, right? The ability from what we've seen before. Since he's living at the Vestiaires, he's able to make day trips to various places around the Seine River. Remember, we're just sort of upriver from Paris by about 10 miles or so. And he's able to go to all of the other little outposts there that have become these sort of thriving little communities outside of Paris. So he goes to Argenteuil. Do you remember who's in Argenteuil at this time? Say it? Not yet. Monet, right? We saw the highway bridge. We saw the promenade. We read about the railroad bridge there as well. All of these are parts of this town in Argenteuil. Monet went there for the water because the Seine widens out there. Well, here's the SQ question, right? The Seine widens out there, and it becomes this great mecca for sailboats, right? Urban people coming out to put to pull up the anchor and sail about in the wide area of the Seine there. Here Sicily shows us more or less downtown. If you will, like one of the avenues through town. That doesn't mean that Sicily is anti-water. In fact, he very much loves water. But he is doing something that we've seen in Pissarro's work, which I think is as strong an influence on him as anything at this point, which is to focus on this laconic, laid-back pace of life, even as people are going to work. Here I'm going to mock him a bit more. Look at the figures. They're kind of the sense of movement through the landscape, the sense of occupying space. It works so well for him. Everybody seems kind of in the same position, bent at the knees and kipped a little bit at the hips, right? And I think things that we saw with Pissarro don't come through as clearly, that sense of being. I mean, there's still a sense of movement, right? Look at how he's stuffed that beige paint in around the woman's head on the left, right? That gives it that sort of slightly diaphanous sense that we were talking about, but there's still something more solid about them. The same thing holds true for the two gents on the right, walking arm in arm. You look at the sense that maybe he's dead, maybe he's old. I mean, really old, old and bent, and stiff and sore. But the French do this. They walk arm in arm. We Americans don't do that, right? Walk arm in arm. You only do it with someone that you're romantically involved with or hoping to be. We don't tend to just throw our arms around each other. But the French do that, and the two fellows on the right seem to be doing just that. Look at how many of the strokes are beneath the surface of the paint as well. Right? This whole area right in here. Can you guys see that as well from the back of the room as I can see from up here? The degree to which what Herbert said about Monet, that's not unique to Monet, that he's built that here, Sisley has built up those texture strokes underneath that run absolutely alternate to the paint that's on the surface. That runs like that. And so that technique that Monet was championed for there seems to be something that other Impressionists are using as well, and again makes us question the degree to which Impressionism is impressionistic at all, the degree to which it's done quickly. Figure with the salesman's cart trying to rein in the horses with his blue workman's coat. And again, in almost the exact same position as the two figures on the street behind them. Sisley seems a bit more comfortable with horses, although this whole joint here seems a little wonky to me. Still, all of that said, he's able to capture the sense of this bucolic environment, this really lovely, low-key town where you can sense everything. And as we've read in so many of our readings about the flaneur, the fellows that just go out and walk around to see what's going on, these dandies of the Third Republic, going out to treat the city as their spectacle, and our fellow on the right in his black top coat and his gray slacks certainly represents one of these urban voyeurs, and I don't mean that negatively. He's not peeking through people's windows, voyeur, but someone who's out simply to look, to take in the city around it. Sisley, by the way, we know for a fact that he knew Monet. They were apprentices together as young artists in an artist's studio. And he also met Fernand Bazille, who we talked about a bit, and Renoir. They were all studying together at exactly the same time in the 1850s, early 1860s. He moved a short distance from Le Vestiaire to a town called Marly-le-Roi in 1875. And here, again, the theme is exactly what we're looking at in the Argentine picture, which is the sort of easy pace of people moving through the landscape. His parents were in the silk trade when he started painting, and were doing really, really well. So he grew up quite wealthy. And on a certain level, some of his pictures seem to suggest, the one on the left in particular, sort of a better field segment of society strolling through these towns, rather than the long-term rural inhabitants. Right? Look at the people in the picture on the left, and they are all, it's almost like a transplant there, rather than the people who could trace their families back there for decades or generations. But by this time in his life, Sisley's family had lost all their money. They were apparently just totally bankrupted by the war. And so prior to 1871, 1872, Sisley could be a gentleman painter, if you will. He didn't have to sell anything in order to survive. Right? He had money. And then his family went broke, and he had to start selling pictures in order to survive. Right? And at the same time, I think that there is a sort of, upper bourgeois sort of mentality to some of the pictures that seems to shine through. And as we look at some of these, for example, I love this picture from the Neptune Valley, the meadow. Well, here, to give an idea of what I'm talking about with the attitude that shows this picture, we talked about this one a long time ago. We didn't talk about it again on Friday when we looked at this. But we talked about this when we talked about the industry kind of coming into the great surrounds of Paris. And so I can't tell if that in the middle is a locomotive engine on tracks, or if it's a smaller, not a house, right? It's too small for that. Pontchartrain to me as well, right? Pulled up there, but that's now kind of pushed its way into this rural landscape, where again, typical Pissarro, people are working, right? They're stacking hay, they're reaping, taking a moment to pause themselves, but nobody's sweating heavy, right? They're poor, but they're dignified. It's work, but it's idealized, right? And Sisley's picture, many of the same compositional elements are there. Field in the foreground, fence running through it, hills in the background, where we can see the signs of agriculture. But instead of showing the indigenous rural population, the people who have been there for years, for generations, instead of showing them, Sisley shows us these bourgeois transports. These two young girls in their Sunday best playing in the field. And we still have in the background of the Sisley picture the signs of rural agriculture. But it's not the scene of the picture in the same way that it is for Pissarro. This would make a wonderful sort of compare and contrast picture. Have you write essays about sort of how they're pulling things off? What are they focusing on? How does it affect your view as a reader of the pictures? What do we have in the foreground around the girls? We have all these wildflowers, right? An unkempt field. Whereas in the foreground of the Pissarro, we can see that even outside the fence is trapping in that area for economic agriculture. But in the foreground, there's that pit for feeding the family. It's been tilled there. Some nice details of this. And you can still see that there actually are people working out there, little flecks of paint that are in the Sisley picture, people working, but the focus of it is not really rural labor. The focus of it is this idea of recreation, play, of utter downtime. Pissarro's figures are always taking a break between other activities, but here, when you're young girls, that's not the case, is it? You got nowhere else they got to be, right? There's no clock to punch here. I love the little bit of blue that she's been painted on top of he hasn't painted the reeds in front of her. He painted her on top of the reeds, but he makes that sort of lowercase n shape, that upside down U of blue paint to make this little squiggle here, right? In order to make it look as if she's behind those reeds. It's very evocative, and you can almost hear the painting. The sound of the dried out reeds that they're playing in. And again, I think like Pissarro, this is a place you really want to be. It's a place to hang out, right? It's a comfortable respite from the world. But unlike Pissarro, it doesn't come loaded with that socialist message of urban labor being pure and honorable and dignified. Right? That's not the message that the picture's trying to get across. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this that what you get from a Sisley, you don't get from anybody else. Because unknown, if you had said Monet, I'd probably give you points. I could see mistaking it for any number of other Impressionist artists. Even Pissarro, for that matter, because, lingering by the fence, you might not think it all the way through. Okay, all well and good. One of the things that he's best known for are a series of pictures he did of floods. There were two major floods on the Seine in the 1870s, one in 1872, and the other one 4 years later in 1876. He painted a vast number of these, and I don't know if other people did, right, paint these floods. And you would think the Impressionists would be all over that, wouldn't you? Especially Monet, who does like himself some water, But I don't know of any Monet pictures of the floods. However, sorry? They're not in Italy, they're in France. No, they're on the Seine, right? The Seine River flooded in 1870, maybe it was in 1872 and 1876. The Seine flooded, broke over its banks. And so both times, Sisley painted in great detail. So here, this Hotel restaurant on the corner here. Looks like it's probably near the train station, but I don't know the town. That's kind of what they all look like. And business is kind of going on. The guy's going to bring them some supplies in a boat that he's, punting around with a stick, delivering people to the door because they can't get out by foot. It's not that deep, right? You can see the shallows on the left. But life is going on despite this flood. This is the kind of picture that doesn't make it to the news, right? There's no cars being washed away or people being roped for help. It's not that kind of drama, right? That's not what he's looking for, is that drama. But rather it's more sort of the fact that this natural event happened and it allowed him a different view of the region than he'd been able to have before. And did quite a few of these through time. I've got some nice details of this one and I want to show you. Right, so the Association Nicolas, the House of St. Nicholas, if you will, Saint Nicolas. Many French businesses call that at the so-and-so, at St. Nicholas's house, where we can see that same buildup of paint that we've been talking about. The interest in light shimmering across the facade, where the peach of the facade is more than just a single color. People working their way around the river, even out into the current. A little boathouse here, a man working his way through those inundated trees on the far right. But I think in many ways you can see that Sisley's biggest interest is nothing political, but rather just an idea of the time of day. And like so many of our Impressionist painters, he's working front to back and back to front at the same time. So painting between the trees after they've been painted, as much as coming over the top of things that were laid down to begin with. And again, this is the antithesis of the way you think about painting often. Lay in the background, bring in the foreground afterwards. And he's mapping it out and coming back and forth and playing with those borders between foreground and background. Nice detail from over there, where you can see that the trees in that figure are all sort of an afterthought, aren't they? Because the highlight of the water along the shore behind him has been laid down more or less in a single stroke. And then the trees are brought in over the top of that. And certainly that figure in that little skiff is very much an afterthought. As you can see, the paint skips across the ridges of the background. That was painted there. Here's the exact same view 4 years later. Right? The same corner of Paul Marly. Sorry about the typo there. But this is the same flooded waters in 1876, the second flood of the Seine. And so again, he just adores this as a theme. He's not against water by any means, even though the ones I showed you before were all landlocked. He's gone to the Seine for the same reason that Monet went there, the same reason Renoir went there. And that is because it allows a certain kind of light, a certain kind of color that he can capture. So did I just say Sisley too much, or kind of like it? You don't get enough of him. He presents some interesting things. Does he say anything we haven't seen before? That's a more arguable point. Degas, on the other hand, is radically different from all of the other impressions. Now, both of these are projecting kind of hot right now. I've got to say with the projector setting. It's a bit on the heavy red side, right? Our figure on the right, the background is a bit more burgundy than that. Pissarro exhibited at every single Impressionist show. Degas came in second, right? I think he missed 2 of them or something like that. Right? But he's the second most exhibited painter of the Impressionists after Pissarro. So he had more shows than Monet, right? More shows than Renoir, more shows than the people that you're used to seeing. Even though Degas' work is radically different from all of the other Impressionists. It really there's just so much of it that isn't similar at all. He doesn't fancy himself to be a landscape painter. Landscapes appear in his works, but they're usually backgrounds for something else. In fact, the majority of the scenes are urban, but not cityscapes. In fact, the vast majority of the scenes are inside rather than outside. He's a painter of interiors. Now, he shares some things with the Impressionists. There's a sense of fleeting brushwork. I think you can see this quite clearly in the painting on your left. Look at her dress, for example. Right? How he captures that diaphanous chiffon of her dress, or even the area around her shoulders. He also likes to work in series, like Monet did. His series, however, are of people. He's a figure painter. And he adamantly rejected the idea of being called an Impressionist. He hated the term. He said, there is absolutely nothing fleeting about my work. My work is not an impression. My work is a deliberation. And what we're hearing and we're seeing from Monet and others is that there's this too. But I don't think he wants his work to come across as anything but a thoughtful deliberation on a subject matter. And as the Impressionist name stuck, remember the first name of the Impressionists was the Independent Artists, right? Society of Independent Artists and Painters. And there were 40 of them, maybe 15 of whom fit the Impressionist theme, mold. Others didn't. With the second show, 2 years later, they decided to call it This is the Show of the Impressionists, to capitalize on the hubbub. And Degas said, don't. No, I don't want you to do that. Right? Please don't call it the Impressionists. Let's continue to call ourselves the Independent Artists. Because he didn't like what the label came to mean. And throughout his entire career, he considered himself a realist. Scenes of contemporary life. Scenes of contemporary labor. That's what the realists were all about, going back to the 1840s. That's what Pissarro kind of was all about. But Degas captures them more hard at work, or getting ready for it at least, which is something we'll see throughout. So there's pictures of ballerinas that you're also very familiar with, which we're not going to look at today. Those pictures of ballerinas are all pictures of working people practicing for a job. And it's one of 3 or 4 themes that he repeats throughout his life, all of whom are working athletes, really. But at the same time, he does portraits of his family. That's what we're looking at here, right? Portraits of Degas' family. So on the right is little brother, Achille, who died in 1893, sadly. On the left is sister and her Italian husband. They lived in Naples. He went to visit them and painted her portrait there. So she's Thérèse Degas. Now, since they came from a wealthy family, lost all their money in the war. Degas came from a wealthier family and stayed wealthy through his entire life. They were bankers. The Degas family bank. They had outposts in Italy. They had outposts in Louisiana. Right? They were international banking family. He didn't have to do a lick of work his entire life if he didn't want to. He was independently wealthy. Which I think is a kind of an interesting thing to keep in the back of your mind. He's the Impressionist that doesn't want to be like the rest of the Impressionists. He can do his own thing. He doesn't have to sell a painting. He can go out and do whatever the heck he wants. Right? And if nobody wants to buy it, that's okay because he doesn't need the money anyway. Oddly enough, right, through the years, he's become one of the most popular with all those ballerinas and whatnot. Yeah? But he didn't have to sell a single thing, so he didn't have to do things that the other Impressionists were doing. He didn't have to be part of a movement, part of a crowd. Right? At the same time, he did want acceptance from the salon. He was certainly after that, as we'll see. But it wasn't, he didn't have to survive, right? So in his early years, in the 1850s and 60s, and even into the 70s, he paints a number of portraits of members of his family, his extended family. So all of these people are related to him in one way or the other. And I think as we look at both of these portraits, we can see the degree to which the incredible wealth of the family shows through in these portraits. The clothing, the wallpaper, and the Morbidi family on the left looks like their servant behind them sort of ducking out of the scene in the orange area there. On the right, Madame Camus has that incredible statue of a Negro, probably African in a kilt, on the wall, and a beautiful lamp directly in front of it. It's not an inexpensive piece of decor to have around one's house, and there it's kind of tucked off to the side. In both of these pictures, you can see something that Degas does, and that is playing with these compositions where things aren't centered, where he really plays with tape symmetry in a very terrific way, right? They're just really bold compositions. He's channeling works of art that he had seen that had been imported from Japan, where you get these broad expanses of flat, and then the subject thrown off into a corner. Right? If you think about your thirds, right? Your rule of thirds, they'll be stuck in one of the far corners as part of the composition, rather than symmetrical or in the center, even just barely slightly off center. They're never slightly off center; they're really quite off center. Right? And in both of these, we can see how the figure is framed and silhouetted by what appears to be an almost flat plane of color. Right? And that's, in many ways, a lesson he learned from looking at Asian art that was beginning to be picked up by artists in Paris. Mostly Japanese prints. René Degas on the left, Madame René Degas on the left. By the way, the family name used to be Degas, right? And then our painter pulled it together into one word. So Degas is not right. That's not. Degas in French means disgusting. It's Degas, right? René of Gas. There's a town of Gas. That's where the family heritage comes from. Right? The one on the left, Estelle Dussault, was part of the, they didn't know yesterday, no now, is part of the Louisiana Legret family. It was painted when he went to visit Louisiana in 1872. She's going blind. She's one of the Louisiana cousins, yeah. Or, I don't know the exact family relationship, but the Louisiana arm of the family. And she's going blind at this point. It's a congenital eye failure. And Degas knows it's congenital. And his is already starting to fade a little bit. And by the 1890s, he's using photos. He gets a little Kodak, goes out and takes pictures of things and uses those to paint because he can't do it anymore, right? But this has this sort of empathy of looking into her eyes, which you can see are set somewhat deeply in the socket. And you almost think that the whole play of that empty, undefined background is that the way she sees, you know? And it's really a fascinating psychological portrait. And in many of these family portraits, I don't know enough about Degas to tell you, but part of me thinks that they're not really worried about them being portraits per se, at least not pictures like these, but rather that they're mood studies. That people are sitting for him in order that he can work out compositional ideas and work out different plays in mood. So that it doesn't matter that that's Madame Camus. It's a gas-lit interior at night with that wonderful play of shapes that you see throughout. This one from the Phillips, right? It actually explains that the title Melancholy. It's a much smaller picture coming back, right? But it's a portrait. Somebody sat for it as a portrait, but then that's not the reason he's painting it. He's painting it to try to evoke and capture a particular mood. And in this case, sadness, right? A woman leaning over the back of a chair and her face in sorrow. So as we look at these portraits, we should keep in mind that one of the things that God's trying to do is to evoke a particular kind of mood rather than function as traditional portraiture. And it doesn't do this all his life. As a matter of fact, he tried to make a big hit at the salon. And there are a couple of pictures that he tries to do that with. On the left, these are both very large pictures. Writing on my notes here. On the left, the Alexander Bucephalus work was submitted to Salon in the 1860s. It shows a mythological scene. This is Alexander the Great as a youth. And that's him in the white. Is able to train a horse that none of the professional horse trainers could train. As you can see, it looks almost unfinished, this picture does. The horse was afraid of its shadow, and this is what caused it to rear up, and this is why no one could train it. And what he did was he understood that if he could get it to look away from its shadow rather than toward its shadow, the horse just needed to calm down. Right? So by turning the horse's head away from or toward the sun and away from the shadow, he was able to do what none of the professional horse trainers did. And with this picture, which is almost 4 feet tall, so it's relatively large, he's trying to put himself forth as a fairly young painter. He's 20-ish at this point, maybe 25. Put himself forth as a history painter. History paintings were still considered to be the best kind of painting, the highest form, because it required more from the painter. To get the story, to get the historical accuracy, to give it that sort of importance. This is old school painting, the kind of thing that the realists had gotten rid of. Right? Historical realist painters wanted to do contemporary life, but here, early in his career, Degas is still trying to do mythological pictures, history paintings. By the middle of the 1860s, he decided to turn his sights on the contemporary world. And this wonderful scene, he returned to this picture again and again. He reworked it 15 years later. He reworked it again 15 years after that. He posed his younger brother as shield for the jockey who had fallen off his horse during the middle of a steeplechase. You know what steeplechase is, right? Do you know the term, steeplechase? You jump over the stuff, right? It's instead of just a horse race, it's the horse race with the bales and the water and the fences you got to jump over, right? And it's a fairly new sport. It only begun in the 1830s, and it only really been recognized as a sport in the 1860s. I guess this is like the X Games of the 1860s, right? It's sort of like motocross biking or snowboarding. It's only finally being, how recent is snowboarding part of the Olympics? Right? It's only like the last couple of Olympics has been part of it because it wasn't recognized as a real sport. That's not like real sport skiing. Right? Same thing was true with steeplechase, right? Real horse racing was real horse racing. This was just a bunch of people goofing off. And it was only in the 1860s that it got international recognition. It was the international something of steeplechase, right? So this is a relatively new sport. It's kind of all the vogue at the time. And it was a sport full of danger, full of difficulty, right? Full of potential harm, like all extreme sports are. And here he shows exactly that, the drama of the piece. A jockey has fallen off of his horse and is in total risk of dying, being trampled to death, right? Submits this to the Salon of 1866. It's accepted there. When he gets it back, he's going to touch it up and try to sell it to one of his relatives. He doesn't. He ends up. But the point is, with both of these pictures, is it shows something that Degas is interested in, that he will be interested in for the rest of his career, and that is horses. And that brings us to something that is really important to get out as we wind down today, is that if we look at Degas' career, right, and there's some outliers to this, but if we look at the pictures that define Degas' career, that he does over and over and over and over again, there are basically four categories, four themes. Horse races. He loves horse races. Does them again and again. Ballerinas. Right? Does them again and again and again and again. Prostitutes. Again, these are all images of the modern world. These are all images of work. Even though really all three of them are entertainment work in a way, right? Except for the jockey. Fourth one, women ironing. Laundresses. Right? These are the themes that fill up, I would say, more than half of the pictures fall into those four categories. And what's fascinating about them, as we look at them again and again, is that he doesn't depict them actually doing it more often than not. Now, this is an early picture, so he's transitioning into this interest in horses, interest in horse racing. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit. When he shows us horse races, he doesn't show us horse races. He shows us on the day of the race, before the race begins. Where the professionals, in this case the jockeys and the horses, who have trained to be doing something in particular, aren't shown doing it. They're shown getting ready to do it. It's a privileged view behind the scenes. And often the people are sort of like, these are bodies that have been trained to do one thing really, really, really well. And they're shown not doing it yet. So the jockeys are sort of trying to keep the horses together, right? Look at the guy in yellow, right? On that horse that's kicking over to the right. You know, he's trying to contain it. Degas, an artist, is interested in these images of athletes who aren't shown doing athletic things. Right? Now, he's not quite there yet with the steeplechase picture, right? He hasn't quite got there yet. But that will consume his career when we look at his racing pictures. Right? Smokestacks in the background are on the outskirts of Paris, the encroachment of industry, blah, 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 blah. Right? More of the same. But he loves these racehorses that aren't shown racing. I think it's so cute, right? Standing in the field. But he studied the anatomy repeatedly. He made these clay models with metal armatures inside where he could bend the legs, right, with the soft clay. And made them for nobody but himself. They were only cast after he died in bronze. Right? They took these clay models that he made just so he could study the anatomy of the horse. Just so he did it right. Same thing true with the prostitutes. You know, all these images of women stretching, ballerinas doing crazy things with their legs, right? Just to study it, and not just to study it by, because he's going to try and draw it, right? But that's two-dimensional. It's 3D to get it right. And just the number of times we see horse races where there isn't a race happening, right, is throughout his career. Yeah. I obviously have more to go, but I'm not going to show it to you today.